Oliveira Lawyers. We are starting one more live stream. I apologize, we just had a glitch. So it may be the case that the link for this live stream is different from the original one. Like we started streaming and, the software was acting up. And then when I try to restart, it looks like it killed the original stream link. But hopefully you're gonna get a notification that we're still streaming just in a different session, and you're gonna be able to participate as usual. And this said, let's take a look at the news. Let's take a look at news in Brazil. So this is what we see at UOL, a major Brazilian news portal. And here there is a headline, alerting the population that attorneys for the federal government, they are going to have a reimbursement for medical costs. Guess what? For their fathers-in-law, in addition to Jim, right? So it means that we taxpayers are going to be paying for medical costs for their fathers-in-law and Jim as well. And, the reason for the portal to highlight those specific cost lines is just to show how out of touch the judiciary or the legal branch in Brazil is when it comes like to compensation. It is just like out of touch. And this is a matter that is being discussed by, not only the Supreme Court in Brazil, like they are kind of understanding that, if things if things proceed as they are, there may be a rupture or, a breakup in terms of, this kind of tolerance that the Brazilian population has for such, unbelievable situations, right? And this is just the tip of the iceberg, people working for the government, right? Not for attorneys or, legal professionals in general. This problem is going to occur for those who are attached to strings of income coming from the government. They are basically creating the rules to, benefit themselves. And that's what you see in this first headline here at the UOL, okay? This is the main headline. And then we have other headlines talking about, the upcoming presidential election in Brazil. Here you see a picture of President Lula and President Trump. I'm not sure if that's the current meeting that they are going to have or that they are having already, but there was an upcoming meeting between President Lula and President Trump. So that's what you see over here. More, politicians and stuff. You're going to see sports and as usual. And this is an interesting topic that is always present here at the UOL. Certainly, it's not common for other newspapers and and other vehicles, but for this one, it's kind of recurring, like sexual themes, topics addressed by this portal. And they are always bringing something that's going to cause like some level of commotion. In Portuguese, we say lacrar, lacração. It means when you bring something specifically to trigger strong emotions and bring a discussion and maybe just to get more clicks on the news. This one in particular, it's pretty, I think, gross in my opinion. And this one is about a man in Brazil who has 7 wives. And they are not only describing, right, their daily lives, but, they are actually highlighting here in the headline that this guy is going to have like sex 10 times a week with his 7 wives. Okay, so that's the kind of news you're going to see every now and then on UOL. But let's also take a look at the Diário de Notícias. Diário de Notícias is a somewhat of a traditional newspapers in Portugal. And a main headline here is about the possibility of the war between the United States and Iran coming to an end. And then there is this caveat that Trump says if it doesn't happen to reach an end, then guess what? New new attacks are going to be coming from the United States. So this is the main headline you see over here. There is another interesting headline over here. There is a proposal from the government regulating a law addressing immigrants that should be returned to their countries. And guess what? Like, there is criticism because the Portuguese constitution, it kind of go against anything that would force people to go back to their countries. And from this perspective, Portugal and Brazil, they are kind of similar. In our constitutions, there are the so-called fundamental rights. There is the same thing in the US. But the Brazilian constitution and the Portuguese ones, they are much more extensive. They are not like just about principles. They are about actual articles, and they are substantially longer. And the way they work is like, they have foreign citizens almost on par with regular citizens. And the consequence is that whenever you're going to address something that you're going to regulate immigration, some, attorney or body, they are going to come to the Constitutional Court in Portugal, and they're going to say, you know what, this is against the Constitution, right? Like, this is against the Constitution because you are reducing the rights of foreign citizens in Portugal, right? And that's a problem because if the Portuguese Congress tries to amend like those issues, let's say through an amendment to the Constitution has a dynamic of not allowing for the reduction of those so-called fundamental rights. So in other words, it's almost like there is no way out for Portugal and Brazil to better regulate immigration. I think that the situation with Portugal is much more critical. First off, because Portugal is closer, to Africa, is closer to other countries that are, sending immigrants in the tens of thousands nonstop. And Portugal is a tiny country, right? Like, I mean, there is no comparison between Portugal and Brazil when it comes to size. Brazil has continental dimensions, so, much less concerning the high influx of immigrants to Brazil. Eventually, there could be, and we have been discussing here at the live stream about an unwritten policy that Brazil has, particularly for consulates like in Asia, in Africa, in the Middle East, of declining visas to pretty much most of the applicants, right? So there is an unwritten policy that Brazil is already enforcing to kind of try to control this huge influx of immigrants to Brazil. All right, and now let's take a look at our partner, Remax Nomad States. That's our real estate agency of choice. They are based in Rio de Janeiro, but they have access to realtors across the country, and they can help you with finding the properties that are going to meet your requirements. So if you want to take a screenshot and make note of the current information, there you are. All right, let's take a look at our chat and see if people are already here. Yes, we have Tora. Bom dia, boa tarde, senhor Oliveira. Good to see you, Tora. Roletut. Oi, Luciano. Wolf here. Hope you're well. Oh, Wolf, long time no talk. Good to have you over here. Let us know how things are with you, Wolf. Good to see you. Marisa Navas, olá, doutor Luciano, estamos atentos à sua live. Bom vê-los aqui, Marisa. Espero que você e o Ricardo estejam bem e agradecemos o suporte. Thank you, Marisa and Ricardo, for the support. We appreciate it. All right, let's take a look at our backlog. What we have is questions. And this is a very specific question about timeline, like for visas, for residencies in Brazil. And instead of just addressing this question from our backlog, I'm going to highlight something that is not something that's not immediate or it's not clear to applicants, right? That there is a distinction in stages, like whenever you are applying for residency in Brazil or whenever you are applying for a longer term stay in Brazil, there is typically a component that's going to be common for your journey and other applicants' journey, which is the component that runs within the Brazilian immigration when you are applying physically in Brazil. So this one is going to be the same no matter where you are applying in Brazil. So let's say you arrive in Salvador, Bahia, or you arrive in Florianópolis, Santa Catarina, or you arrive in Rio de Janeiro. It does not matter. When you apply, your application typically goes through Migrante Web, which is a portal, and this is going to be handled by the Brazilian immigration in Brasilia, the capital, and it's going to be similar, again, no matter where you are physically. Now, once your residency application is approved, and it could be like the retirement residency, it could be the digital nomad residency, it could be the residency based on real estate investment, your approval is going to be published at the DOU. DOU stands for Diário Oficial da União, and a rough translation would be the Brazilian Official Gazette. Nowadays is not like a newspaper anymore. Naturally, it's being published online. So once your approval is published online, and yes, it's going to be published for everyone to see, including your full name and your passport, all right? After this step, there is the need for you to do the so-called registration with the Brazilian Federal Police. And that's where, your journey may be substantially different from someone else's journey, because the states and even cities within the same state, they are going to have very different procedures and, as a consequence, timelines, right? And maybe just to go straight to an example to help illustrate the distinction, in Rio de Janeiro, Santos Dumont Airport, right? Rio de Janeiro downtown, when you apply, typically when you take your documents for the registration with the federal police, they are going to approve the application or not on the spot, and if they approve, they are gonna give you the resident number on the spot. It is actually a printout with your picture, with your bio info, and your resident number. Okay, the card is still gonna take an additional couple of months, but the good news is that like once you attend the appointment, particularly using a service like ours, chances are you're going to leave the appointment with your residency, okay? Now, that's not going to happen typically in Santa Catarina. So if you are in Florianópolis, the place that you typically go is going to be a federal police station, but it's not going to be in an airport. It's going to be in a mall, the Floripa Mall in Florianopolis. And over there, typically you're going to take your documents. The agent is going to take your file. They are going to make sure that all the components are there, but they are not going to review the documents that you provided. They are just going to assemble in a folder, and they are going to do this review after you leave, meaning that this could easily take an additional 30 days. Okay, so if you see how different it is, the process, like in Rio de Janeiro, from Florianopolis, they are substantially different. One, they are gonna, evaluate your application on the spot. The other one, they are gonna save your file for later. In addition to that, when you try to schedule the appointment with the federal police, this is also going to be different. So for Rio de Janeiro, guess what? There is a portal. You can go over there and you can actually book an appointment with the Brazilian Federal Police, and that helps because you have a calendar that you can pick a date. Many times the dates are not close. They're going to be like a month and a half, sometimes 2 months down the line, but you can pick something. Okay, now. In Florianopolis, there is no such thing. You are actually going to send all the documents by email. They are going to do this basic check in terms of, assessing if you at least have the documents. And then, only then, they are going to give you a date into the future, and they are not going to ask you if the dates are good or not, right? Like they are the immigration. You're not like scheduling a gym session. You're scheduling with the Brazilian immigration. So their understanding is that you should be happy with the date. It does not matter how far into the future and what day they are giving you. Okay, so that's going to be Santa Catarina. And then guess what? You have all the other states and all the other cities, and they are going to be somewhere in the spectrum. Some are going to allow an appointment for you to pick a date. Others are not going to allow. And you're going to see everything in between. Okay, so whenever people ask, all right, what is the, typical timeline? Or what is the, are they going to accept this document, right? It's very difficult for us to have, a prognostic right off the bat. And, in order for us to articulate concepts that we discuss here in our live streams, we end up having to repeat basically, if that's the case, if you are, in this place, if you are, in this type of situation. And the point here is that every situation is going to be different than, someone else. My recommendation, right? And when you hear that, my concern is that, well, maybe they're going to get concerned about this whole journey, which is not exactly, let's say, fully forecastable ahead of time, right? And my recommendation for you is to just follow the flow, right? You got to do one thing at a time. You shouldn't be concerned about the entire journey. Just, troubleshoot the next milestone in your journey, and you're going to get there. And that's the same thing in Brazil. It's going to be the same thing, guess what? In the United States, it's going to be the same thing in Portugal. So just follow the flow. Understand you're dealing with immigration. And immigration is not like, a club. It's not a gym that you pick what you want. You got to follow what is available from the Brazilian immigration. And that's my suggestion on how to make your journey easier, if you will. All right, Jonathan. Boa tarde, Luciano. Boa tarde, Jonathan. Good to see you over here. Roll it. Youth, all good here. In Fortaleza and loving it. What is the longest TCAT period for a vehicle you have seen in a context of an investment visa? 4 years. So to make sure of that I understand correctly, you probably have a vehicle from abroad, and you are keeping this vehicle in Brazil under a temporary authorization not sure if currently it is being issued by the federal police or the Brazilian Revenue Service. But typically, the way it works is that they are gonna match the authorization to your timeline in Brazil. So let's say if you are under the investment visa / residency, right? Meaning you have 4 years in your first period. In my understanding, there would be a support for them to give you 4 years. All right. Now, I don't think it would be a problem for them to say, you know what, 4 years it is too much. Let's give it then just a year. And then my recommendation is that after a year, guess what? You go back there and say, you see, like I have an additional 3 years. And they would most probably give you additional years until you've been for 4 years in Brazil. Oof. All right, Proudly. Thank you, sir, for this session. You're welcome, Proudly. My wife and I would like to relocate from Dubai to start a business in São Paulo. What are the processes? Proudly, so that would be the company / business investment track. It is a track that we don't typically handle here at the firm because we don't believe it is a good track for most immigrants. But I can give you, some highlights of the journey. The idea is that you're going to invest about $100,000 in a company. This investment must be regulated by both the immigration and the Brazilian Central Bank. So there is a very specific way of sending this money to Brazil. You're going to need to show where this money is coming from, for compliance processes. You're also going to need to ingress into the company ownership. So you cannot just send money and that's it. You're going to need to participate in the ownership structure of the receiving entity, right? Very important. If you miss any of those things, it doesn't work, right? So money, you need to show where the money is coming from. You need to send the money to Brazil in a strictly compliant manner, meaning being recorded by the Brazilian Central Bank, meeting the compliance requirements, and entering the bank account for the company that you are investing in. And in addition to that, there should be a change of ownership structure for the company receiving the investment. All right? So these are the main dynamics. Now, the really troublesome part for us is not like this initial journey, which, by the way, is cumbersome, right? Like when I say real quick, it may sound, all right, it's not that much of a big deal. Trust me, there is a lot of friction, for you to do just what we said. Now, the real problem for us is going to come down the line because guess what? Your residency is going to be linked to the company, to the investment, and most importantly, to meeting the business plan that you're also going to need to present to the Brazilian immigration. So let's say if you are assuming that you're going to create what we recommend, at least a couple of employment positions at the company, and 2 years down the line, you're not creating the employment, there is a good chance the Brazilian immigration is going to come over and they are going to say, you know what, like you're not meeting what you promised in your business plan, and therefore we're not going to renew or we're going to void your residency in Brazil, right? So this is the main point of concern here. And guess what? Many other firms, they are not going to tell you that. They're going to say, listen, my service is to apply for this visa, and after that, that's your problem, okay? And so they are basically just taking your business without addressing with you the chances of trouble down the line. And in addition of potentially losing your residency in Brazil, guess what? If you let go those 2 employees, Brazilian employees, not you and your wife, right? The Brazilian employees that you would hire, they will most probably sue you, even if you are paying every single labor right that they are gonna ask, right? And they are actually enforced by the Brazilian so-called CLT, which is the Brazilian labor legislation, which is gonna give them, believe it or not, from the get-go, like first year, they get 30 years of paid vacation, and you not only pay the salary for that full month, but you're gonna pay an additional third because guess what? They need to travel, right? So that's just one of the points of aggravation that you're gonna face. Even if you follow every single CLT requirement, down the line, once you fire this employee, they could still come with claims to take one more bite at the apple, right? So that's just too much for us to handle a case like this. And what we do, usually we make an assessment, right? Like, so we do have clients for this route, interesting enough, but these are clients, for instance, we have a client, he had been in Brazil for, I don't know how many years, several years, and he was actually active in business, right? He was in the real estate segment, and he was working already successfully. So for this guy, we look at it and we say, listen, for him, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. He's not coming from far away to try the chances. This guy, he is already succeeding in the business activity. He knows Brazil, he's doing well, and it's just natural that he's gonna follow that path for the immigration. Now, before proudly you say, well, so you're saying it's a no-go. There is the real estate investment track, which is much cleaner because the real estate investment track, you basically buy a property. And after you bought the property, you don't need to employ anyone. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to succeed in business. You just need to keep the property. That's all. So that's why we typically like the real estate investment route much better than the business/company investment route. Proudly, I hope that was helpful. Oof, thank you. It is the Receita Federal for my personal vehicle. Thanks for explaining. No problem. Just as additional information, we do have a notice of people renewing the stay. Now, have you applied already, or are you planning to apply? I'm just curious because if you want to report back to us, I'm interested in knowing if they are going to give you the full 4 years or if they are going to be renewing on a yearly basis. But, for some operational or strategic information for you, I can tell you that other clients of ours, they were able to renew the authorization consecutively, all right? And as far as I know, there is no exact timeline. I mean, there is no piece of legislation saying, and by the way, you can renew for just 3 times and then the door's closed. As far as I know, right? You're never sure when they are issuing some new type of regulation, but based on my knowledge, no limit of renewals. All right, Ulf. But yes, if you get that piece of information and if you could report back to us, that would be appreciated. Proudly, an African restaurant. That's the business, sir. Yes. I mean, African food, proudly, is always, welcome in Brazil, I would assume. Now, it is a business segment with a lot of labor litigation, right? You have waiters, you have waitresses, and many times you are unaware of the labor regulations in Brazil, or even if you are fully aware, it is so difficult for you to keep everything on track and everything under control, proudly. So that's certainly something that we would not, unfortunately, and very respectfully assist here at the company. All right, proudly. We would certainly recommend you to proceed with the real estate investor route. Jonathan, Luciano, do you have suggested areas of recommendation in Brazil, preferably coastal for U.S. expats to consider living, and where they can live safely, comfortably, and affordably? Jonathan, whenever you say coastal and affordably, this is going to be typically the northeast of Brazil. There is no much to be discussed here in terms of options, because the way we divide, right, our coastal area is like the northeast and the center south, right? So the center south is going to be substantially more expensive than the northeast. Whenever we're talking about the center south, we're going to be typically thinking about Espírito Santo, Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, Santa Catarina, and Rio Grande do Sul, right? These are the center-south coast of Brazil, and they are the most expensive by far. Nowadays, Santa Catarina is actually, probably ahead of São Paulo in terms of, costs and prices. And depending on where you are comparing to Rio de Janeiro, even, beating Rio de Janeiro. Now, Rio de Janeiro has, different areas, okay, in terms of coastal. You have, Porto Maravilha, which is by downtown, which is not expensive by any measures. You have Botafogo, Flamengo, which nowadays are increasing in price. You have the so-called Barra. Barra da Tijuca is a huge tract of land, a lot of coast, and prices are all over the place, including affordable prices. There is Recreio, very good prices as well. Now, when it comes to the South Zone, the so-called South Zone is basically Leblon. There is São Conrado as well. So São Conrado, Leblon, and Ipanema. So those places, they are much more expensive than the remaining of Rio de Janeiro, okay? Copacabana is a place very interesting. I particularly enjoy Copacabana. I like to have a breakfast in Copacabana. Is a very lively place, but is not at the same level in terms of price with Ipanema and Leblon. Ipanema, Leblon, much more upscale. Copacabana is very popular, right? It's very popular, very lively, no problem with that. Now, when we're talking about the Northeast, so Northeast starts, guess what? After Espírito Santo, and then our usual recommendation, Jonathan, is for you to stick with the capitals, right? Particularly if you want to be able to resell a property in the future, okay? If you buy outside of the capitals, guess what? The prices are going to be even more competitive. They're going to be even lower. There are not many foreign citizens active outside of the capitals. This is an upside, but the downside is that when you try to sell, you typically sell at a loss, right? When you're buying as a foreign citizen, there is the foreign citizen effect. Guess what? People are going to say, well, this folk, he has a lot of money. They are not going to give you a price break. In some markets, actually, like, South Zone of Rio de Janeiro is not uncommon for when you address the seller, once they know that you are a foreign citizen, they are going to increase the price. And they are not going to do under the table. They are going to tell you to your face, you can pay more, and guess what? I'm going to charge you more. You don't like it? Go buy elsewhere, right? That's Rio de Janeiro, South Zone. The Northeast is not as aggressive in terms of overcharging foreign citizens. But what they are going to do is like, typically Brazilians, anywhere, they are going to ask more than they are willing to accept. And once they see that you are a foreign citizen, they say, well, I'm not going to give this guy a break. And they're testing the waters right now. If they see that you're serious about going elsewhere, guess what? They could change their mind. But they don't change their mind in a few days, right? Like they are going to make sure that you're not bluffing, right? Because they also know that people, pretend that they're not interested, and they say, well, I'm going to buy elsewhere. And then 2 days later, you you come back and say, you know what, I'm going to accept the price. So there is that to the price. But the point about the capitals is that when you try to sell your property, when you eventually sell the property in the future, you typically retain most of the value that you paid, right? And particularly if you're holding the property for a long period of time, naturally the prices are going to increase, and you are actually going to sell for more than you bought. That's at the capitals, right? Now, if you're buying in a distant type of a neighborhood, sometimes you're gonna have issues with reselling that property. All right, Jonathan. Now, talking about names, maybe that's what you are asking about. You guys probably know I like a lot Ceará, right? Like Ceará is my state of choice. I myself have investments in Ceará. Immediately before Ceará, like if you're going from the south to the north, you're going to have Rio Grande do Norte, you're going to have Natal. And Natal for us, the translation is Christmas, okay? And Natal is another capital, a really good capital. It is a little bit more cost effective than Fortaleza. If you drive like 1 hour of Natal, you're gonna have some amazing beaches, right? And then you're gonna have a Pipa. Pipa is a major destination for foreign citizens in Rio Grande do Norte. But in Pipa and elsewhere, like as soon as you leave in Natal, many times prices are gonna, behave like I told you. They are not gonna hold. So sometimes, you're going to buy in those areas. The seller, who may be a Brazilian, they're going to think, well, now is my chance, to get like big money on my property. And then you buy the property because you love it. It looks cool. It's close to an amazing beach area. But again, in the future, when you try to sell, the reality is not as exciting. Okay, so that's going to be Rio Grande do Norte. And then you have many other, you have actually 3 other states, right? You're going to have Pernambuco, and the capital for Pernambuco is Recife. Pretty good capital, very competitive cost-wise. They have a program for digital nomads, so, technology, internet is pretty big in Recife, which is, again, the capital of Pernambuco. We have João Pessoa, which is another capital for the state of Paraíba. And then you have, the very famous Bahia state, which capital is going to be Salvador, Bahia. And I love Bahia. Bahia, very exciting. There are many different destinations. There are some destinations that are not capital in Bahia, but are still solid choices for investment, like Porto Seguro, for instance. Porto Seguro is a major destination in Bahia. So these are all choices, Jonathan, that you can explore. And my recommendation is for you to make something fun. Take maybe a few weeks and drive through the Northeast, right? Like try those different places, try the capitals, try those smaller destinations, and see how they click with you and your partner. That would be my recommendation, Jonathan. General Principal, bom dia, Senhor Oliveira. Hope everyone is doing well. Good to see you, General Principal. Is it possible for you to use your superpowers and slow down the current surge of the real, or at least till I acquire real estate? Yeah, General Principal, a very interesting point, right? And, it's interesting or, challenging, because some people, guess what? They are not going to buy real estate because they think, you know what, maybe if I just wait a little bit more, the US dollar is going to recover in terms of strength when compared to the real. And then many people are kind of, waiting to buy real estate. And that has reduced our pipeline a bit, right? Because again, there are many people who are waiting for something to happen. Now, you never know, right, General Principal? I mean, it could be that the real and the US dollar, they are reaching a new point of accommodation eventually. And we took a look at the currency exchange graphic, like, a couple of live streams ago. And what I can tell you is that still, as of today, the currency exchange is much better than it has been for most of the past. And if you are interested in buying, like, I mean, I wouldn't, if I was in your shoes, right? And listen, I'm not a financial advisor, a financial expert by any means, but I wouldn't wait. I mean, just because life happens, and it's not because of like a difference in currency exchange that you should postpone your plans for too long. That would be my take on it, General Principal. But I wish I could tell you, where the currency exchange is gonna go, and we never know. We never know. There are, always rumors about the U.S. Like there is this kind of. I'm not sure if it is a real theory or a conspiracy theory that the U.S. Is like trying to find a solution for the $30 trillion debt, right? Like that they're going to unload in a type of digital currency. And because of that, there's going to be some inevitable reduction of the US dollar, right? That's one of the theories, like, you see out there that they're going to digitalize the US dollar. There is not going to be this traditional dollar that we know as of today. So who knows? Are they conspiracy theories or are they, real theories, right? You tell me what you think about those theories. All right, Coleman, do you have a company that you work with for document translation? Yes, Coleman. We work with this company over here, the translationcompany.com, right? And we have a long-term partnership with them, Coleman. So whenever you work with our, services, we typically send your documents to them for translation. They're going to send you a link for payment. You pay for the service that they're going to send us the translated documents. But if you want to reach out to them, they should be able to assist you as well. All right, Ulf, thanks again. I will do so via email. Thank you, Ulf. Thank you for keeping us posted. And enjoy Fortaleza, right? Next time I'm there, and I should be there soon, I'm going to, shoot you an email. Maybe we can have a cup of coffee, right? That's something I like to do with like some of our older clients. It wasn't recently, but it was actually in October of last year. I met with one of our clients. I think it was in Coimbra, Portugal, and such a crazy word. Like this gentleman, he is our client for Brazil. His immigration journey is into Brazil, but we happened to met in Coimbra, Portugal, right? And yes, we do meet some of our clients every now and then. We have nowadays 4 offices. We have an office in Rio, we have an office in São Paulo, we have an office in Brasilia, and now we have an office in Florianopolis. And naturally, I cannot be in all offices at the same time, but whenever I have an opportunity, I do meet with clients, usually not for advisory, because we have a very professional team who, usually they know as much as I do, if not more. So they are the ones actually taking good care of our clients. But I love to meet our clients for a cup of coffee, to see how their journeys in Brazil are going on, and share a little bit of my experience of over 2 decades working with people just like you. All right, let's see what else we have. We have Ofon Golden. Please, may I know the cost for the real estate route to relocate to Brazil? It is possible to buy an apartment for 250,000 Brazilian currency for investment visa. Golden, so I'm gonna write here our email, right? We don't have like shelf prices for this type of stuff. We do ask questions about your journey, and then we can better estimate our services. So I'm sharing right now our email address for you to email, information that you have. Many times scheduling, booking a paid consultation, it may be a better idea to tell you about the different routes and see what works best for you. But for the real estate investment, the traditional one, the one that we think it makes more sense to most people, is going to be a 1 million reais across the country with a 30% reduction for the north and the northeast. Okay, so I'm not sure if you were here when we're discussing about the northeast, talking about all of those states, right? Like Ceará, Rio Grande do Norte, Pernambuco, Bahia, Paraíba, right? So all of those nice states, they're going to have a 30% reduction, but a 30% reduction on a million, it's going to be 700,000 reais. So 700,000 reais is far from 250,000 reais. There is a workaround that we don't typically do here at the firm. Some people say, like they're very creative, right? They say, well, you know what? I want to invest in a business, but I don't want to invest in a business. I want to go with the real estate route. And guess what? They start a company to buy a property. And with this kind of approach, in theory, they would reduce from 1 million reais to 500,000 reais, not to 250, right? They would reduce to 500,000 reais. But then you're going to have all of those entanglements that I was addressing earlier here at the live stream about, the need for you to create employment positions, to deal with, like all the labor regulations, like, 30 days of vacation with an additional, salary payment from year one. You need to pay those folks. And if your business does not succeed or does not meet what you're promising in the initial business plan, guess what? They could take away your residency, right? So that's why we don't like the route of investment in a business, all right? And by the way, just for you guys to know, in terms of fees, we typically get the same if you are buying real estate or if you are investing in a company. So it's not like we are making more money on the real estate investment track. That's not why we are pushing the real estate investment track. It is just because it is so much cleaner and so much safer for the first season. That's why we push. For those few ones that we're going to assist with the company investment route, we're going to make sure to charge the same thing we charge for the real estate investment route. So even though you are investing 500,000 reais instead of $1 million, reais, you're going to pay us the same fee, okay? So just making sure it doesn't sound like we are pushing you to the real estate to make more money out of your business. All right. Marrou, seu Oliveira, boa tarde. Boa tarde, Marrou. Fico feliz em assistir sua live e eu fico feliz por você estar aqui, Marrou. Could you please share the best email address I can use to reach out to you before scheduling an appointment? Marrou, you can email the same address, the info@Oliveira Lawyers, okay? And then you just tell them, listen, I want to schedule an appointment, but I want to meet with Luciano instead of another attorney. And when you book the appointment, they are going to make sure that I'm going to be the one taking your appointment. All right, Mahu, no problem about that. And you can use the info@oliveiralawyers.com. Typically, it's going to be answered by Justin. not Justine, it's Justin. And Justin, she is going to take good care of your appointment, Maho, all right? Info at Oliveira Lawyers. Just send an email, say, listen, I want to schedule a consultation, but I want to consult with Luciano. They're going to make sure that that happens. All right, Maho? Thank you for the interest. Coleman, thank you. Thank you, Coleman, for participating. All right, so we are arriving at the end of today's live stream. I hope you enjoyed the information shared, the interesting topics addressed. If you did, please like our live stream. The likes are going to help our business, and they are also going to help other people just like you to find this content. And now a heads up for you guys. Unfortunately, we're not going to have our live stream next Wednesday on the 13th. So again, please take note. We are skipping our live stream on the 13th, but then we're going to be meeting on the 17th. On the 17th is going to be a Sunday. And as usual, we try to have 2 live streams on Sundays. So we're going to have a live stream on Sunday, May the 17th, but unfortunately, we're not going to meet on the 13th. And then after the 17th, we are probably meeting on the 20th, right? So we're meeting on the 17th Sunday, and then we would probably meet again on the 20th, all right? So the live stream for the 17th is already entered to YouTube. So if you come to our live streams, you're going to see a button, notify me. If you click on that button, once we start our live stream on the 17th, guess what? You're going to be notified and you're going to be able to participate with us. So thank you again for your participation. And we